Hello, my friends. Brian King, the Mindset King here. A little something happened this morning that I wanted to share. In particular, I wanted to share my mindset and how I walked through this. We have our days, we start out our days with a plan, ideally, as opposed to just winging it and living reactively. And I was blessed today with a pretty open schedule. And I was going to use all of that extra time to catch up on projects, check in with people, and so on. And I was eager, enthusiastic, looking forward to it. And then I noticed I got a voicemail from one of my many doctor's offices. I had a blood test yesterday, which I do periodically to check certain levels in my blood. And what's been happening is I would get the blood test and it would be several months. And then they would check again, and maybe I would need some intervention, maybe not. Well, I just had a procedure a month ago, and now it turns out from the blood test yesterday, I need to have this procedure again, which is kind of surprising to me because I'm not used to having it in such close proximity. In any case, the procedure I'm talking about is something called therapeutic phlebotomy. It's fancy language for bloodletting. Yes, they basically just take blood out of you to treat it. So I have a condition called polycythemia. Yeah, that's on top of everything else. You know, I'm a walking diagnosis. But in this condition, too much hematocrit and hemoglobin, the stuff that carries oxygen, there can be too much of that in my blood to the point where my blood becomes thicker and I'm at increased risk for blood clots and stroke. So if those levels get too high, they need to do some bloodletting to thin the blood out a little bit. So that's what I'm looking at. And I got to go do that today. So needless to say, that little outpatient procedure changes things. Now, keep in mind, I didn't say wrecked it. Didn't wreck my schedule. Didn't ruin my plans. Changed it. So language is so critical. And when we're talking about mindset here, you really got to pay attention to the words that come out of your mouth because that is a reflection of your internal meaning, the meaning that you are assigning to that event, that experience. So that's step one, is what do you call it when it shows up? You say, oh man, this sucks. Man, this is going to wreck my whole day. That really sets the trajectory for your experience of this. So just begin by saying, well, that's a change, or that's unexpected. You know, that was unplanned. Those words are pretty neutral. It's when you start emotionally charging them that it creates difficulty. So I don't step into the, it sucks, this is terrible. I don't do any of that stuff. I just see it for what it is. It's unexpected. It's a change. It's a fact. Okay. So facts are undeniable. I can look out my window right now and I see ice on the bush in front of my window. I see snow on top of the ice. I could sit here and say how cold it is, how unfair it is, how, man, all these years I shouldn't be here. I should have moved. All right. Well, none of those things happened. What did happen is ice and snow is on the bush and on the sidewalk, and that's a fact. Is there any point in emotionally charging those facts? By emotionally charging them, does anything change about the reality of the fact that they're here, they must be dealt with? No, it doesn't. So keep it neutral. Keep yourself in a place of homeostasis, resourcefulness. When you get anxious and you get all emotional, your ability to problem solve is compromised. So keep it as neutral as possible. Okay, there's this fact that this needs to happen, and what am I going to do about it? Well, I got to call the doctor back in a few minutes and make an appointment so I can go in and get it done and see how I feel. Sometimes I feel lightheaded. Usually I don't feel it at all, and I can just get in the car and go home, and maybe I need a little bit of a nap afterwards, maybe a small headache. But it's not enough to derail my entire day. Oh, there's one of those words, derail. I don't want to use that. It's not one of those things that is going to, seeking for a word here, but this is important. It's not one of those things that is going to deter me or limit my ability to be productive. Maybe I won't be as productive as I had initially planned, but that's okay. Because there's nothing on my list that's an emergency. There are just things that are important, things I want to get done. And I can focus on those to the degree that I'm able to after this procedure. Because one of my values is the importance of self-care, client care, family care, and as much as possible, balancing those three, or at least not necessarily balance, but making sure that I give the attention that I can under the circumstances. So because self-care is one of those things that I value as being important, I'm not going to compartmentalize it and say, this work is far too important. I've got to focus on this work today, come hell or high water, because I'm tough and I'm going to push through any physical symptoms, blah, 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 Iron Man, so on and so forth. Especially in my case, I got too many things going on. I've had to let one thing get out of control. Who knows what kind of a domino effect that would have. So when the needs for self-control show up and they are of the caliber of what I'm talking about here, the potential for a stroke, I need to deal with that now. But I don't want to deal with it from the standpoint of feeling like a victim. Man, this always happens to me. Man, this is so inconvenient. Why, when I have a day to myself, does this always happen? Blah, 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 blah. There's this conversation that we create that we can really make ourselves miserable, frustrated, victimized, oppressed by all of these little life things that simply are. They just happen. And yet we concoct this drama that we make those moments opportunities to feel like life is against us, like there's this invisible adversary, this force that's holding us back, when the reality is our life is really not that different from anybody else's. What does make a difference is how you show up when those challenges arrive in your life. Do you meet them with grace, with gratitude, or do you meet them with a grumpy attitude? That just kind of showed up. I didn't mean that rhyme, by the way. But you see my point, right? How you show up to it. How do you greet it? What's the first meaning you assign to it when it shows up? If your first meaning is to awfulize it, well, it's going to take care of itself from there. But if your first response is to just say, oh, there you are. You know what? There's a lot of change in life. So I was pretty much expecting you. I was hoping you wouldn't show up because I had some plans. But since you did, what do we do now? How do we deal with the fact that this is a reality that demands our attention so that we can give it what it needs, then send it on its way, and we can get back to where we were before it even happened. Get back to that status quo. Get back to that same peace and groundedness we had before it happened. That's the kind of grace I'm talking about. Can you do this? Heck yeah. Does it take work? Absolutely. But if you want to do the work, I'll teach you how to do it. It's a phenomenal way to live, to be able to live in, as much as possible, that state of acceptance of the things you can't change. Yeah, that doesn't mean you're not going to complain about them from time to time. It happens to the best of us. We're human. Man, I totally had an ADHD moment right there and lost where I was going. But you know how that goes, right? But being able to find that place of serenity as much as you can. That's the goal here. Are there going to be times where you're frustrated and angry? And yeah, all those wonderful emotions that come along with the human experience, those don't go away. What can go away is how long you stay there, how long you fret, how long you tell yourself that story that keeps it going for days or years. Can you change the mindset that creates that? Heck yeah. It's going to take work? Yeah. Fortunately, I've done the work. I've spent the past 30 years on this. So I could significantly reduce your learning curve if you feel like doing the work. If not, hopefully this video has been helpful for you in some way. And if you know somebody that it can be helpful for, pass it on. And until we talk next, this has been Brian. Thanks for being you.